Eva Long is a rape survivor from the DC area.
Hello, my name is Aviva. Almost 1 year ago, I was raped at a party in Falls Church, Virginia. I awoke in a basement after a night of drinking. It didn't occur to me right away what had happened, but it didn't take me long to realize I was raped and likely drugged. Recently after I awoke, a guy I know from high school, who I'll call D, took me outside and tried to have sex with me. I was coherent enough to push him off and say no. Later on, I tried talking to D online about what happened to me earlier that night. I told him I felt I was roofied and raped. He said, "These things just happen. The same thing happened to my sister." He also said, "Good luck, but I'm not talking to any cops." I didn't want to believe anything happened, but my gut got the better of me, and within 24 hours, I went to LabCorp to get my urine tested for GHB and other date rape drugs because going to the ER seemed too scary at the time. When I went to the lab and handed the technician my doctor referral, he gave me a funny look and seemed unsure of what to do. The lab called me the next day and told me that they gave me the wrong cup to pee in, so they threw out my sample and said I had to come back and give them another one. I was infuriated and didn't return to the lab since date rape drugs leave your system fairly quickly. I went to the ER later that night. The hospital refused to perform a rape kit on me since it had been more than 24 hours and I had showered. I was diagnosed with rectal bleeding and prescribed Tylenol and sent on my way. When I later asked for paperwork to give to the police, the hospital provided me with an incorrect printout of my marital status, address, and other vital personal information. The next day, I went to the Fairfax County Police Department to give a statement. The detective working my investigation was supposed to be one of the most seasoned veterans of the force. Seasoned is not what I would describe this man as. He was intimidating, he was jaded, and made up his mind that he wasn't going to help me within an hour. He pressured me into signing a statement of non-prosecution. Therefore, I felt trapped and helpless, so I signed the statement out of guilt so the police could use their resources for people who really need it. After giving it some thought, I called the station about a week later to reopen my investigation. A different detective answered the phone and told me I have the option to be reassigned to another detective. Later, I was told by a lieutenant that this was not true, and I was stuck with the original detective who pressured me into signing the non-prosecution statement. I now know that I was pressured to sign it that day because if I decided to reopen the case later, which I did, the fact that I initially signed the statement would destroy my credibility if it ever went to court. So the police did not try very hard to bring this case to court because it was already a deemed lost cause. Among other things that greatly upset me, the detective who worked my case refused to allow a victim advocate to be present during all my interviews after several pleas from a victim advocate and myself. He grudgingly took my clothing after multiple times I insisted it was evidence. He told me that it was probably not helpful and the police would not need it even though there was blood and other stains present on it. This detective had the nerve to suggest to me that there may be stains from previous partners on my clothing after I told him that the clothing was brand new and that night was the only night I wore it. He used this ignorant rationale to justify not doing a forensic analysis on my clothing. He refused to explain to me what a medical waiver is and told me to just obtain one even though the hospital records were incorrect. On several occasions, he accused me of being argumentative when I asked him questions about legal proceedings, legal terms, and my rights as a victim. He initially mentioned a preservation letter, which in retrospect would have been helpful in saving evidence, but he did not make use of it. When I asked the detective if he smoked with my doctor, he said he did. Later, my doctor told me this wasn't true and she never talked to him. He questioned me in depth about my sexual history in case defense comes at us. His questions included what sexual acts I performed in the past. I can understand him asking me whether or not I had been with anyone at the party before, which I had not, but there's no reason that the detective needs to know the age I lost my virginity or what kind of sex I had in the past. He asked me if I was sexually abused as a child. When I asked why this was important, he told me a defense attorney would use it against me in court. He used my Facebook account to add a witness as a friend without my permission and against my wishes. To me, the most upsetting shortcomings were not what this detective did, but what he failed to do. He conducted his investigation from a desk instead of face-to-face interviews with witnesses and potential witnesses. He failed to call the person who I attended the party with and he failed to interview 2 people that claimed to witness the rape. As part of the investigation, the detective told me to call potential witnesses and tell them that I thought I was pregnant in order to get information from them. As if I already hadn't endured enough psychological trauma, now I had this social burden of being branded a liar and an attention whore. I wrote a letter of complaint voicing my concerns to the mayor, the Commonwealth's attorney, the chief of police, the captain commander of Investigations Division Internal Affairs Bureau, and the commander of the Criminal Investigations Bureau. My complaint eventually circulated back to be reviewed by the same lieutenant who originally told me that I could not change detectives. The lieutenant said that he would get back to me with results of investigating my complaints in April. But of course he never did, because he was one of the very people who I complained about in my letter. As the last resort, I wrote to the parents of the witness who refused to talk to police. This is the letter I wrote. Dear Mr. and Mrs. My name is Aviva. I went to a pool party in Falls Church, Virginia on September 4th, 2011, and I was sodomized against my will by an unidentified acquaintance at the party. I believe I was drugged and have no recollection of the rapist's name or appearance. So far, the police have been little help, although I reported the crime and they have investigated it. I had flashbacks of standing in an enclosed dark space, confused of why I was there, pushing someone off from behind me, and feeling a sharp pain down there. I went to the ER later because of rectal pain and bleeding. I talked to your son D online a couple days after the party, and he admitted to witnessing the event. Better than anyone else, he could identify the perpetrator. The detective tried calling D on several occasions, and D will not call him back. I'm relying on a statement from him in order to continue my investigation. If he doesn't talk, my case is closed because the detectives have exhausted all other options and are not in a position to pursue this any further. I've known your son since middle school. We've never been close, but it breaks my heart that he won't come forward for me. I don't think he construed the sexual act as rape when he saw it. I'm not blaming him for not stopping the incident, nor am I upset with him for attempting to have sex with me hours after the incident. Although I'm sure he's embarrassed by his actions, and that's probably why he's not coming forward. I'm not trying to press charges against him for anything. The fact that he's refusing to give police a statement is devastating, considering he admitted to me that his own sister had been assaulted. I'm aware he's under no legal obligation to give a statement, and this is why I decided to write to you, as a last resort to find justice. What does D have to hide? Who is he protecting? What is he afraid is going to happen if he just does the right thing? All I'm asking is that he talk to police and tell them what he saw to the most accurate of his recollection. I'm begging for your empathy in this matter, and I hope you can encourage him to speak up for me. I would do the same for him. Sincerely, Aviva. His mother contacted me. His mother contacted me on Facebook and asked if I would like to talk to her in person. She said she encouraged Dee to call the detective, but she can't force him to do anything. What a poor excuse for a woman and a mother. If this were my mother, she would put my brother on the street in a second if he refused to help a girl in this situation. Since he refused to come forward, my case has been labeled a suspicious incident. It's not even considered a crime because no one worked hard enough to obtain evidence that was readily available. I went to my local Department of Health and Human Services in Maryland for counseling regarding my rape. I asked to have group therapy because it was offered as an option. They said they need at least 4 victims to request group therapy in order to hold it, and currently I'm the only victim in my county that wants it. Calling the current system archaic would be an understatement. It is fucking atrocious. We live in the year 2012, and the police will turn down visible physical evidence like clothing that victims handed them. Over 60% of rape goes unreported. I didn't want to be part of that statistic, but I would rather regret doing something about the problem than doing nothing at all. Thank you.